Another Western female darling leader has resigned today. She's not a female darling. Western darling female leader.
Okay.
That's
darling
how I wanted that
Western
to
leader?
be.
Darling female Western leader. And this is not a darling. I want to be clear. You say these things occasionally and people in the chat are like, why would Natali think that she's a darling? No.
When I call someone a media darling, it means the media treats them as a superstar without critical thought.
Okay.
That's what I mean. I'm not saying I love that person or I think that they are awesome. A media darling, let's give some examples. Barack Obama, Michelle Obama, media darling. The media treats her as if she is royalty.
Right.
I want to say, I don't know, throw some out. Come on.
I don't know. Meghan Markle?
No, she's a media pariah.
Hillary Clinton.
No, guys, no, you're not doing this.
Depends on the news channel, but
You're doing this wrong.
I don't know.
Media darling, someone who is like fawned over, like
I think
Princess Diana.
Yes.
Dolly Parton.
You nailed
Yes.
yes. You nailed it though with Michelle Obama. Like
Michelle Obama,
without any critical
media darling.
Yes.
Okay, so we're gonna call Nicola Sturgeon a media darling and a female leader. She has resigned today unexpectedly. She's the first minister of Scotland, and she also was the first woman first minister. She's held this post since 2014. This was not expected. She was reelected for her third term just recently in 2021, and this post has no term limits. They serve at the pleasure of the monarch. So she either had to lose an election or resign, and she chose to resign. Again, she has enjoyed celebrity-like status in the Western media, but people who are critical of gender ideology are reducing her resignation to gender issues. And we're going to get to that because I do personally think she's a feminist traitor. But there are other reasons that we are going to cover. First, her resignation. Here is her announcing it herself today.
I'm announcing my intention to step down as First Minister and leader of my party. I have asked the National Secretary of the SNP to begin the process of electing a new party leader, and I will remain in office until my successor is elected. I know there will be some across the country who feel upset by this decision and by the fact I am taking it now. Of course, for balance, there will be others who will, how should I put this, cope with the news just fine. Such is the beauty of democracy. But to those who do feel shocked, disappointed, perhaps even a bit angry with me, please know that while hard, and be in no doubt, this is really hard for me, my decision comes from a place of duty and of love. Tough love, perhaps, but love nevertheless for my party and above all for the country.
Okay, the chat had some great suggestions from media darlings. You guys suck at this. Zelensky is a media darling.
I was thinking woman.
Gavin Newsom, media darling.
Oh yeah. First of all, Zelensky is the perfect media darling. Did you watch the BBC reporter just a few days ago give him a hug after a press? A BBC reporter hugging Zelensky. Yeah. Okay.
Did you see Macron and him like uncomfortably long embracing and holding hands? It was awkward.
No,
yeah, that was weird.
Greta Thunberg, media. So thank you for those. Those are excellent. Chat room gets an A.
Yes.
Boys, you guys get a C.
Okay.
Lindsay Lohan. Okay.
It's like high school all over.
Lindsay Lohan. No. Okay. You guys are out. Fail. Okay. Back to Sturgeon. She lays out her reasons in this conference, and she says this is not a reaction to short-term pressures. She said she's used to that. She's been grappling with this for a long time, but she did say that leading the country during COVID was one of the hardest things she's ever done, and it wore her out. She used this sort of nothing left in the tank bit that Jacinda Ardern used. Well, it wore everyone out. Here is, I like this take from Toby Young from the Daily Skeptic, said Nicola Sturgeon was one of the West's most authoritarian leaders, an enemy of free speech, and someone who had no qualms about turning her country into a temporary dictatorship during the pandemic. Thank God she's going. Let's hope all other Western leaders who have made the same mistakes over the last 3 years follow her lead and resign before they're rejected by their electorates, starting with Justin Trudeau. Her pandemic record was a lot like Jacinda Ardern: strict COVIDism, limited personal freedoms, Western alignment, support for the war in Ukraine. Check to all those things, just like Trudeau, just like Ardern. Trudeau now is the last man standing of that media darling group. I'm going to say, yes, Trudeau, media darling. She acknowledges, Sturgeon that is, that many people do not like her, and this is hindering her politics. Take a look.
I feel more and more each day now that the fixed opinions people increasingly have about me, as I say, some fair, others little more than caricature, are being used as barriers to reasoned debate in our country. Statements and decisions that should not be controversial at all quickly become so. Issues that are controversial end up almost irrationally so. Too often I see issues presented and, as a result, viewed not on their own merits, but through the prism of what I think and what people think about me. I've always been of the belief that no one individual should be dominant in any system for too long. But while it's easy to hold that view in the abstract, it is much harder to live by it. With this decision, I am trying to do so.
All right. So she says, things that should not be controversial have been controversial. Like maybe, what is a woman?
Yeah.
She's like, this shouldn't be controversial. But she continues to not be able to define what is a biological woman or the merit of a single sex space. I agree with her. These things should not be controversial, but she has dug her heels in to defend these things that are indefensible. I swear I'm coming around to gender, but I also want to present you with a few other reasons that people don't like her, as put by this Scottish Member of Parliament, Stephen Kerr. Nicola Sturgeon looked around at the mess of her own making: gender reform, NHS crisis, strikes, council funding, A9 delays, education, disasters, ferries, and more, and she threw in the towel. The NHS bit that he's talking about, we'll take a look here. The healthcare system in Scotland is overrun throughout Britain, if that's the case, from delays from the pandemic and other pandemic-related issues. Doctors say this is from mismanagement and negligence from the Scottish government. Oh, but they did have time for this, and money. They ordered these rainbow badges to support trans rights in the national health system for healthcare workers to wear around, costing taxpayers over £33,000. And reports are that over 10,000 of them are just laying around unused because healthcare workers don't want to play politics while they're, saving lives.
Yeah, good use of money.
Yeah. Doctors are feeling that the system is neglected and mismanaged. But we got rainbow badges, so all good. The teacher strikes rages on over pay disputes. The reports are that they are going to get an offer soon, but they are on strike. That is currently happening. She mentioned in her speech the Scottish referendum for independence. She says she still does want this, but someone else has got to lead it because she doesn't think she's the right person to do that. So that's totally an unsurety now. We don't know if that will even happen. But even with all of this mess, it does seem like the hill she's dying on is about gender rights, the gender ID bill. We've discussed it a lot. It was the hotly protested bill that passed in November that would make it easier for people to legally change their recognized gender, dropping the age to 16 from 18 and no longer requiring a medical diagnosis of gender dysphoria. And it would remove all that bothersome paperwork. Shortly after it passed, the British government blocked it because they said it will have implications for the whole of the UK. And Sturgeon said she would fight it, but then it all blew up in her face, especially last week over this case, the imprisonment of Isla Bryson. That's not Isla Bryson. That person was born as Adam Graham, was convicted of sexual assault, while Adam Graham, this is now that person. That is Isla Bryson. This person was convicted of sexually assaulting. Can I use that word? Or maybe I shouldn't because social media. Of graping without the G. Okay. 2 women in 2016 and 2019 while living as a man. While in prison, they transitioned and told the court during the trial that they had always wanted to be a woman. Now, the mother of Adam Graham says that my son never showed any interest in being a girl as a child. And so I'm not sure why they would make this choice at the age of 29. And the mother herself was a sexual assault victim. So she's sort of horrified by all of this. But because of the self-ID culture in Scotland, Isla Bryson was allowed to be held at a female prison. And prisoners were reporting being tormented by this person. Again, the idea of a rapist in a female prison is something that anybody who promotes the gender ID bill cannot answer for. And here's last week when Sturgeon was forced to admit that this is wrong.
I heard the Chief Executive of Rape Crisis Scotland say this yesterday. I don't see how it's possible to have a rapist within a female prison. And so let me be very clear. I agree with that statement. And bearing in mind what I've just said about the importance of individualised risk assessment as a general principle and presumption, I think that statement is correct. Now, it would not be appropriate for me, in respect of any prisoner, to give details of where they are being incarcerated. But given the understandable public and parliamentary concern in this case, I can confirm to Parliament that this prisoner will not be incarcerated at Cornton Vale Women's Prison.
So can I ask the First Minister, above asking where he currently is, was there any ministerial involvement in the decision to send this rapist to a women's prison? And before that 72 hours expire tomorrow, will the First Minister personally intervene and remove this double rapist from Cornton Vale?
First Minister. I think I'd repeat some of what I've already said, but let me be clear. This prisoner is not going to be incarcerated in Cornton Vale, either short-term or long-term.
Okay. This was a big outrage over the last week in Scotland and in the UK. It's now come out that most trans inmates in Scottish prisons are men and that they do torment biological women. So this is why single-sex spaces, not because trans people are criminals, but because criminals can use the laws to access female spaces and torment women. And there's no one speaking for women's rights to single-sex spaces, and no one in leadership currently. In the past, when she was defending the gender ID bill, she'd asked, well, how do you know the difference between a trans person who just wants to access these spaces and a person who is a man who's exploiting trans rights in order to access and harm women? And her response was basically, you know that when he hurts the woman. So, like, we wait for that to happen before we know.
Let's just wait till he actually rapes. Okay, then we'll know. Then we know that.
Meaning it's acceptable to expose women to the possibility in order to validate a small group of people's ideology, using women as bait. Not my daughters. No, thank you. I'm saying no, thank you to this.
That's like going into a lion's cage and goes like, is the lion friendly? And they're like, well, we don't know.
You'll know if you die.
No, it definitely wasn't.
Yeah, we'll find out. We'll find out. You go be the tester.
Maybe what they need to do is make them go through the surgery for, transition before they are put in there. Like, okay, a stipulation is you have to get the full surgery, and then you can go in.
They removed that because trans people were saying that that's discriminatory because it is painful and because it requires a lot of body sacrifice and pain. It hurts you.
Here's the thing. If you want to go move into a woman's prison, you want to go move into a woman's prison after you have been convicted of murder or you've raped other people. How about this? You want to move into a woman's prison, you will become a eunuch. Like, we will literally take care of that for you.
Human rights groups literally make sure that you can't do that to prisoners.
Right. I'm saying, they're clearly not standing up for the other women.
Sure that they don't get raped. Yeah.
Right. They're not. So the other people that are in the prison where they're actually going to go physically harm those people, we're fine with that. But if you want to transition, then go full, go all in. You want to go all in and go to a women's prison.
Well, right. I mean, again, the argument against that is that you're pushing them too far. Like, you can't, you should just accept my ideology without asking me to make these extreme bodily sacrifices. But we should fight for the right to do it to children.
Right.
It's, again, I saw somebody saying, like, she's resigning because you can't answer these questions. Because you can't answer how you are not protecting single-sex spaces. Now, we have some more jubilant reactions to her resignation that I would like to show you because I had a little fun with them on Twitter. Here's a Welsh member of Parliament saying, Nicola Sturgeon announcing she's resigning. This is what happens when you decide to play politics with the lives and safety of women and children. Here's from Julie Hartlett Brewer, a radio show host. Dear Nicola Sturgeon, don't worry. You can still self-identify as the Scottish first prime minister.
First minister.
Yeah.
Yeah. So even though you're leaving, you could still say you're the first minister.
If ideology is all it takes. Yeah. And you don't even have to be 18.
She could be an Asian man if she wants to, I guess, under her ideas.
Tom Gallagher, who wrote a book on Scotland recently and how we got to the Sturgeon administration, also wrote the Salazar book that I liked a lot. He wrote, having promised last month to be around for the duration, suddenly the music stops and it's all over for Sturgeon. She never betrayed any sign that she was a servant of the people and instead treated Scotland as a petri dish for madcap experiments. Joy unrelieved for millions.
He's right. And, I saw an article last week. Since when did Scotland become the most woke country in the world? And this is exactly what's happened over the past year.
Yeah. I'm going to read that Gallagher book because it will take us back further than this. Here's another one from a guy that I follow who is gender critical, Icelandic gay guy. He says, Scotland rejects gender woo-woo. About time, good riddance. Congratulations, Scotland. And finally, from the Scottish Feminist Network, they are saying, we told you so, basically. She is this destroyer of women's rights. I tend to agree. Now, I've been waiting all day for a tweet from J.K. Rowling. I didn't see it yet. Anybody? Maybe we can...
I didn't see it either. I will mention she's out with she was interviewed in a big new podcast, something about the witches. I forget the name of it, where it's a full deep dive into her standing up for women's rights. And of course, she's been vilified for it and she's been called transphobic. And of course, that's all garbage. And so this new podcast series is out, this deep dive interview where she talks about this, all of this whole discussion around this. But she's been, of course, a big, opponent of Nicola Sturgeon.
Yes, which is why she has not said anything. I've been refreshing all day, so I'll be looking at that. So
maybe she's gonna sit this one out.
maybe
you don't take a victory lap. You're just like, okay,
you don't need to.
You don't need to, right? Here's what happened. Yeah. The victory is in that she's leaving. So the people have spoken, I guess. Great. Well, we'll continue to follow that story and what's next for Scotland, and will they declare their independence? I mean, that's the next big question.
And I want to give an A+ to the person in the chat that named Dr. Fauci as a media darling. Yes, if ever there was a media darling, Fauci, definitely Dr. Fauci. A+ to that one.
If ever the darling there was, Fauci is one because.
Yeah. This was a good game. I appreciated your contributions.
Yeah. Thank you so much for watching this segment here at Redacted. We are live every day at 4 p.m. Eastern time, trying to share the stories that the mainstream media will not cover. You should also come over and join our community of Redacted Rebels over at redacted.inc. That's our private locals community where we can share exclusive content that we simply cannot share here on YouTube. Come over and join the rebellion together right now by going to redacted.inc. We'll see you next time.